You are as old as time, a cemetery for life's beginnings. Your battlements are scored by the elements, scoured and shaped by sun and wind and rain. Yet still you restless stand, oblivious to clock and calendar. The backbone of South Australia, the Flinders Ranges, stretches from Crystal Brook in the south to Mount Babbage in the north, a distance of 480 kilometres. This mountain range consists of a series of individual ranges, some areas dating back nearly 2 billion years, long before life evolved on Earth. The story of the creation of these landforms is as old as time itself. It began over 700 million years ago when a vast inland sea extended into the centre of Australia. Long periods of enormous pressure folded this seabed into tall mountains, some 15,000 metres high. Evidence of this period can be found in glacial rocks found in Bararana Gorge in the Gammon Ranges. Nature then set about the long task of shaping the mountains. Her tools were wind and rain and extremes of temperature. Thus, the Flinders Ranges were born, a birth 700 million years in the making. Initially, it was purely practical needs that lured the early settlers into the ranges. Pastoralists and graziers searching for viable farmland, and prospectors dreaming of the as yet undiscovered mineral wealth lying beneath the surface. The ranges offered hope of fortunes to be made, but the reality of the harshness and unforgiving nature of this severe land dashed the hopes and dreams of all but the most determined. The ruins of Kanyaka Homestead, 80 kilometres south of Wilpena Pound, show the scale of development sometimes reached. Kanyaka is a relic of the huge sheep runs prevalent last century before faith in the hospitality of the land dwindled. The land was to win out over other commercial ventures in the ranges. Abandoned workings of the Sliding Rock Mine at Beltana bear testament to the dubious and variable success of a mining exploration boom that was to aid an ailing economy for some years. Smelters like this one at Bolla Bollina were established to treat the ore from surrounding mines. However, this mining boom came to an end when supplies became exhausted and demand for the ores waned. The floral display in the Flinders is spectacular. It is generally springtime when the best shows of wildflowers are painted across the backdrops of the slopes and plains. Wild hops, an introduced plant, is particularly prevalent. A pest to landowners, but a captivating delight to the visitor. Often, the red and purple is speckled with combinations of bright yellow or white daisies and eremophilas with their spectacular variety of colours. No springtime visit to the ranges would be complete without seeing the famous Sturt Desert pea. There is almost perfection in the brilliant red petals, radiating out from a pure black glossy centre, offset by the grey-green leaves. In good seasons, whole hillsides are carpeted with masses of these photographers' delights. Water was, and still is, the most precious commodity in this environment where water sources are scarce and unreliable. Waterholes are rare, and the vast majority of creek beds are dry most of the year, filling only when unseasonal rains fall. Once relied upon for the survival of explorers and pioneers, they are now valued as tourist attractions, where the lure of water in an arid environment, like an oasis in the desert, is all but irresistible. A major element in the charm of the waterholes is the abundance of flora and fauna drawn to them. Bird life delights the ear as much as the eye, with its carolling and chirping, punctuated at regular intervals with screeches and squawks from masses of wheeling corellas and galahs. The magnificent wedge-tailed eagle can be observed at almost every turn, in bushes and trees, on the ground or in the air. This bird is a fascinating hunter of legendary ability. It has the facility to remain soaring aloft at dizzy heights with minimal, effortless wing movement, suddenly changing its flight pattern to produce dazzling displays of speed and aerobatic prowess. The Flinders Ranges are home to a vast menagerie of fauna, both native and introduced, and the waterholes are their meeting place. It's not unusual in the Flinders Ranges to see kangaroos bounding across a plain, resting on a hillside, or feeding at a waterhole at any hour of the day. However, their main active periods are just before dawn and at dusk each day. The beautifully marked yellow-footed wallaby was all but extinct a few years ago. A vigorous conservation program was undertaken throughout the ranges, and now their numbers are slowly climbing to a point where they soon will no longer be considered an endangered species. There are the smaller, less conspicuous creatures to see. Stumpy-tailed lizards spend most of their day searching through the undergrowth for the precious food and water which will sustain them through the warmer months. Smaller geckos can be found on rocks and branches throughout the ranges. Reptiles here are diverse and plentiful. One of the most majestic landforms in the Flinders Ranges is Wilpena Pound, a unique phenomenon. Its name is taken from the Aboriginal word meaning bent fingers, which aptly describes the pound and its resemblance to a cupped hand. Nowhere else is the basin formation so well defined and complete, while remaining so accessible. The acute scarps of the rim of Wilpena Pound consist of hard, weather-resistant quartzite in long, regular vertical blocks. The spectacular views from lookout points surrounding the pound are the objectives of countless visitors keen on contemplating the massive structures and the vivid colors of magnificent topology and rock formations. At the northwestern end of the pound, Idiawi Creek cuts through Idiawi Gorge. A number of side creeks enter the gorge, draining the surrounding region of water. The panoramas for 360 degrees are unparalleled, with unobstructed views that stretch for up to 100 kilometers. Travelling along the scarp leads to St Mary's Peak, at about 1,200 metres, the highest point in the Flinders Ranges. In fact, a number of peaks around the edge of the pound are among the tallest points in the ranges. Situated in the Flinders Ranges National Park, Wilpena Pound is the hub of a concentrated smorgasbord of attractions. Running along the southern perimeter of the pound is the Moralana Valley, which boasts Black Gap. It's reached by crossing and recrossing Moralana Creek, which is lined with magnificent river red gums. South from Black Gap Lookout is the imposing Elder Range. While from the valley floor, the most easterly peak of the pound, Rawnsley Bluff, stands stark against a cloudless sky. To the east is Stokes Hill Lookout, presenting yet another perspective of the surrounding formations. Evidence of Aboriginal man can be found in Sacred Canyon, a compact but picturesque gorge. Although miniature in size, this canyon has a charm all its own. Carvings on the rock walls relate to the ancient Aboriginal times. It has not been possible to determine the age of the engravings, nor has it been possible to interpret the abstract designs which occur alongside the more recognizable animal tracks and circles. The narrow chasm adds its touch of intrigue to this canyon, held sacred in Aboriginal mythology. Mount Sawtooth forms a spectacular backdrop to Bunyaroo Valley. Bunyaroo Creek flows through the gorge, which is lined with steep gullies and pyramid peaks. Even in the hot, dry months, this creek always has a permanent waterhole or two along its course. The rugged Bratchina Gorge meanders its way through sharp sawtooth ridges of resistant quartzite and limestone. The hilly terrain, with some sharp angled outcrops, reveals a magnificent array of colours. Here in the rocks of Bratchina Gorge are embedded a range of primitive fossilized creatures that have helped geologists piece together the vital beginnings of the Flinders Ranges over 500 million years ago. The splendid Aruna Valley runs between the ABC Range and the magnificent Hyson Range, which resembles waves about to break. The famous Australian landscape painter Sir Hans Hyson is commemorated in the Hyson Range, location of his favourite painting haunts. It's near this range that he settled for a time, his cottage ruins remaining as a reminder to us of his time here, where he painted what he called the bones of nature laid bare. A little further north is the track through to Parachilna Gorge, another favourite destination. In a compact area, Parachilna has few waterholes, multicoloured boulders, glorious river red gums of considerable size, high cliffs and bluffs, even native gardens beside the creeks. As the road winds through the gorge, the scene changes dramatically, revealing new, unexpected panoramas. All of these attractions are within easy reach of visitors based at Wilpena Pound, the heart of the Flinders Ranges. Near the northern extremities of the hills, before the flat desert stretches out into sand drifts and gibber plains, are the Gammon Ranges. Mount Painter sits majestically in this central granite region. This distinctly shaped, isolated mountain shows massive scars of the batterings of time and weather in the form of overhangs and caves. Although only about 800 meters above sea level, Mount Painter is visible and recognizable many kilometers away, and was used as a homing beacon by the early Aborigines. The beautiful Yadnamatna Gorge, which stretches across the North Flinders Ranges, is one of the deepest in Australia. The name is derived from the region's Aboriginal tribal group, Unjamatna, the mountain people. Further north, the Freeling Heights and Mawson Plateau are found, a unique wilderness area of limited and difficult access. Without the influence of man, the predator, and with permanent water trapped by the impervious granite floor of the plateau, wildlife of every kind flourishes here as a secure and isolated microcosm of Flinders Ranges life. The main threat to the native flora and fauna comes from goats, introduced to the Flinders by white man over 100 years ago. Although an eradication program has been reasonably successful, these feral animals can still be found in pockets throughout the ranges. These spectacularly colourful ochre walls were used by the Aborigines of the area as a source of ochre, a valuable and prized possession of all the tribes. Scraped from the sides of the walls and ground into a powder, the ochre was mixed with water to make a paint used in drawings, cave paintings, and facial decoration. There is no sense of order here. Enigmatic conformations and structures have puzzled geologists endlessly. Huge volcanic pipes, the centers of ancient volcanoes, solidified and exposed by the weathering of the surrounding rocks, project from valleys and hillsides, demonstrating the formidable power which forced the molten lava out through any weakness in the land. It is as if the land was bent and buckled and extruded in a frenzy of volcanic explosions. In conjunction with a massive upheaval occurring with the eruptions, a treasure chest of gems and minerals was created and spewed out, leaving the Flinders Ranges as a collector's paradise. Copper, gold, precious and semi-precious stones, uranium ores were all sought and found in this region. Commercial mining, primitive by today's standards, but nonetheless rigorous, and solitary fossicas have left their mark for posterity. The Flinders Ranges renews our faith in the belief that adventure still exists. One is immediately and forcefully struck by the concept that the dynamic ranges have no time. They will still be here in thousands of years' time for countless generations of visitors, just as they have been there for thousands of years before. You are a million favorite spots, countless memories, the subject of an unending series of photographs and paintings. You have stolidly remained, imperceptibly but constantly changing with the seasons and the years. A museum of the origins of life, and a home for a unique ecological system, preserving ancient footprints. You are an indefatigable collector of relics, preserving the progress of the world around in tombstones of rocks to stand the test of time. And in the midst of the rush of civilization, you endure patiently, and your gift is the gift of respite, of beauty, of eternity.